We've been enjoying the heck out of a segment that we do Thursday mornings around this time with our friends at Mercy Health. We call it What's Up, Doc? And we get some of the experts that they have on hand at Mercy Health to join us a little bit, educate us, deal with us, that sort of thing.
Mostly deal with us.
I believe they get a little extra something in a pay envelope. Hazard pay, combat pay, whatever you want to call it, for spending some time with us. This morning, the person that we're going to learn some stuff from is Dan DeSloover. His specialty, behavioral health, employee assistance, and a whole lot more. We're moving through some uncertain times of the pandemic, stress, anxiety, depression, all that stuff going along with us. Well, Dan's going to help us understand some of these things and how to deal with it a little bit more. Dan, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, too. Thanks for having me on board this morning.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a behavioral health counselor, a mental health counselor. I've been in the business about 20 years. Currently, though, I'm doing employee assistance, which is counseling for employees. So it's behavioral health counseling.
All right. And I would imagine that there's probably been quite a call for it during this pandemic.
Well, it has. It's affected all of us. It's raised our stress levels and our anxiety for sure. This pandemic has been scary for most of us, especially, when it first started. It was new, and we didn't know what it was all about.
What about the psychological effects of this pandemic? What are you looking at?
Well, it affects us in lots of different ways. First off, it affected our sense of safety in the world, right? It came on quickly, and we were all scared about getting it and giving it to our loved ones. Now, the CDC has come out with some very helpful guidelines for us, like wearing a face mask and social distancing and hand washing. So, we're taking steps to, protect ourselves and our families, and that's working. But, it's decreased our sense of safety in the world, too. And it's really had a lot of other effects as well. Like, we're exposed daily to these very graphic images on the television about people dying from COVID-19. And so it's raised our anxiety levels. For some, it's caused some panic attacks or, frequent thoughts about the pandemic and difficulty stopping worrying about it. So, there's some important things people can do to decrease the fear related to it. Like, they can limit their exposure to the news. That's a trigger for worry. And so maybe somebody would watch the news just once a day instead of multiple times a day, or maybe read about it on their phone. It's important, too, as we're feeling this increased stress, to practice our relaxation strategies every day to bring that overall arousal level down. And that varies by person. Some people enjoy exercise, others working in the yard or the garden, or reading a book or taking a hot bath or something like that. But it's important to think about, at this time in our lives, what can we do to bring our stress level down?
We'll get to more of the doom and gloom aspect of what this has done to us in a second, but maybe there's some good news or some silver linings. Have you noticed, a little more self-reflection, maybe paring back or being untethered to work as closely as we have been? Have you noticed any positives coming out of this?
Well, there has been some. Some folks have kind of spun this to their advantage in thinking about how it's increased the closeness with their family members. They've had more time to spend doing bonding activities together. Certainly it's important for us to remain positive during this pandemic, to think in ways that are realistically positive. Like, there's a vaccine around the corner. They're anticipating that there will be one available already next year, and here we are already closing in on September.
One of the things, Dan, we talked about earlier this morning is in response to this pandemic, pet adoptions across the nation are just off the hook. You talk about emptying the shelters. We've done that and then some. Adopting pets. You're seeing so much of it. There's a psychological basis in this, isn't there?
Well, certainly it promotes relaxation. And a pet's a great way to decrease your overall stress level. We've known that, research has shown that. There are even some therapies involved using animals. So, it's a great strategy for decreasing your stress level.
So you mentioned a relaxation, focus on relaxation. We talked about pets just a moment ago, about how, that adds is a stress remover and adds something to your life. What else do you recommend people try to do that maybe they haven't done before?
Yeah, there are those common sense or commonly known strategies that are actually effective. And I have some other ideas too, but, like, for example, exercise. Most of us, in my experience, most people don't exercise regularly, but we know that reduces our stress level. Part of what causes our stress is our own thinking. And it's that uncertainty, unpredictability related to the pandemic that's a trigger for worry, for anxiety. And so some of the strategies we can use are like limiting our catastrophic predictions about what's going to happen. We can just work on refraining from going there as often. Or we can intentionally choose to recognize the positives where they exist.
Because it's easy to find yourself bogged down in the negatives because you get slapped in the face every time, you're looking at some news. You'd mentioned that before, where people get themselves bound to the news cycle and find themselves continually either on their phones scrolling through a news feed or just standing there and watching the same stories get repeated over and over and over again. I've got a friend who's been struggling with depression and anxiety during all of this. And the first step to take for him anyway was to definitely dial that back and try to find some things. If you're going to be online looking at things, find things that make you laugh. Find things that make you happy.
Yeah, right, because then you're providing a good balance in what you're thinking about. And, that anxiety related to the coronavirus will prompt more anxious thoughts and, like you say, rumination or dwelling or maybe seeking out more of the same information. And providing a balance in that is extremely helpful. That's a good point.
It's gotten a lot better, but mental health not very well understood in this country right now. I know a lot of people maybe don't even know that they're suffering from depression or anxiety. Is there like a checklist that you can go over with yourself or to properly maybe self-identify an issue you're having mentally?
Sure. With anxiety, it's typically frequent worry or thinking about problems most of the day, most days of the week. And you might experience it physically, upset stomach, difficulty with relaxation for sleep in the evening. You might have gotten feedback from family members or other individuals saying, hey, it looks like you're worrying a lot. And so it's those kind of signs that indicate, hey, I'm worrying too much. And most people, if you ask them 0 to 10, how stressed out are you, they can pretty much pinpoint 0 to 10 what their stress level is like. And so if you're at a 5 or higher, that's really an indicator for, okay, I need to step back and figure out how I can reduce my stress level.
So if we do identify something in ourselves that's not right, and maybe it's a little bigger for us to handle on our own, and we want to schedule a meeting or some sort of session with a professional like you, what's that first interaction like? What's the meeting going down for?
Well, the first interaction would be asking about kind of general life circumstances and current stressors, and also a review of symptoms about anxiety or depression to ensure that those aren't a factor, or maybe identifying those as a goal for the counseling. What an individual would do is they would look at their health insurance and find out who their covered providers are locally, and then you just simply give them a call and they'd schedule in, take appointment.
And it helps. It'll help you get a handle on things, and that's the other thing. As Joe had mentioned before, mental health still not all that well understood in this country. And a lot of times, there's a stigma attached with the fact that I think something might be going wrong here. I'm not thinking clearly. I'm upset at all the times. You're in a perfect position to let people know that's a perfectly natural phenomenon.
Well, that's exactly right. I don't know who isn't have an increased stress level related to this pandemic. And, I do think the stigma about seeking mental health care has decreased over the years. I've noticed a change from when I began in the field 20 years ago till now. People are much more comfortable seeking counseling. Even men are more comfortable going in to see a counselor to talk about, stressors and how to manage them.
What do you think the shift in that was due to? Just education to the public?
Well, that's what I think. I don't know exactly if that was through the news stories or something on TV, but there's been a definite shift and an increase in acceptability about seeking counseling.
So if someone is feeling some of the feelings that we've talked about, or all of those feelings, and are having a real bit of difficulty getting a hold of it themselves, how do they make contact with you, Dan?
Well, they would need to, their best strategy would be twofold. One is either to access care through their insurance, find out who their behavioral health counselors are, Or another really great approach is to schedule a one-time appointment with their doctor, because the doctor can review those symptoms to make sure there isn't an underlying condition, maybe even review a medication options, but point them in the direction for where they can seek services. So, if the person has a relationship with a physician, it'd be super easy to give a call and schedule an appointment.
Outstanding. Well, you've given people a wealth of things to think about, and don't be afraid to pick up that phone. Get yourself some help. Get yourself feeling better. There's people like Dan all over who are, that's their job. That's their calling in life, is to help make you feel better about the situation that you're currently in. Dan, we appreciate you taking time out of your day. As always, during this What's Up Doc segment, we've learned a whole bunch, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you, too. I appreciate it as well. Have a nice day.
You, too. There's Dan DeSloover. He's behavioral health counselor at Mercy Health.